God will allow your heart to speak when you're under stress, when you're in situations which seem dire. Well, that's when you will speak what your heart is feeling. And this is the case when we look at Moses and the Israelites. Just listen. You'll hear them speak. And God needs the hearts to be revealed so that he can heal before he allows there to be a game of inheritance. And so God will allow circumstances to push you to the limit to see if you will limit him. Limit the omnipotent God in your situation because of how you feel. No, it's not about how you feel. Ultimately, it's about God's plan for his people, for you. Blessings abound. Leadership is vital. God always chose a leader. He never just had a people without a leader. Certainly, America can understand that the country rises and falls on leadership. The country makes a turn to the left or right, depending on leadership. It didn't take but 24 hours for America to change because there was a change in leadership. How the leader leads the ship will determine whether that ship experiences the benefits that God has for his people. So it matters who is leading, who has the strength of leadership and the fortitude of leadership to lead the people into their destiny. It matters. Blessings abound. Leadership certainly matters. It matters who is leading the ship. God never has a people who do not have a leader. A leader needs to hear the way, to give the way for the people to take that way. Certainly, America has experienced a change of leadership and a change in the nation. It didn't take but 24 hours. Changes have occurred. What was going left is now going right. What was interesting is now forthright. There's been a lot of change because there has been a leadership change. When a leader leads, the country will make a shift. Good leadership will lead that ship to their destiny, to their purpose. So it matters. It matters who the leader is, how the leader thinks. If the leader leads the ship correctly, God must get the glory out of your story. Keep it about the I am. Blessings abound. I do believe that God was not pleased with Moses. For Moses came crying to God. Moses came not as a leader, but as a lackey of the people. God had already conditioned Moses to know how to handle being a leader. One thing for sure, God had taught Moses that it's not about him. It is about the I am. However, when Moses was confronted by the people, he lost his footing and he forgot how God had trained him, that it was about the I am and not about him. When you are challenged, when you are confronted, it may be your experience, but it's still about God. God must get the glory out of your story. Keep it about the I am. Blessings abound. When Moses came crying to God, God asked Moses, "Why are you crying to me? Tell the people to go forward." In other words, God is saying to Moses, "Didn't I already tell you that I had a place for the people? Did not I already prepare a promised land?" When God has already given you instructions, when God has already shown you what he has for you, then the hindrance, then the obstacles will not stop you from gaining or getting what God has for you. Don't cry about it. We live in a time when men are encouraged now to cry. I say don't cry. Leaders, don't cry. Lead. Cry in your private time. Cry after you make it over. Cry in celebration. The people need you to lead. The people need to get to the promised land. That's what God has for them. So leader, lead. Blessings abound. One thing that Moses continues to prove is that God's people, the Christians, we're not perfect. God used Moses, even though he was a vessel that was cracked at times. He was a cracked pot. Yet God still used him to pour out to the people. This is important, that we must realize that God will use whom he chooses, even when that person chosen doesn't want to be chosen and causes you to question whether he has been chosen. God chose him. And so Moses, no matter what you are facing, God has already faced you and told you that he will have his people to inherit the promised land. So remember, what God speaks, God has already ordained. And therefore, whoever he uses will accomplish his will. Blessings abound. Even while Moses was on the backside of the desert, watching over his father-in-law Jethro's sheep, he was learning the use of the rod and the staff. Important, because as a deliverer of God's people, he would know what the rod is used for. And over again, God told Moses, hold out the rod over the situation, over the land, over the sea. Hold out the rod. You know how to use it. Many times we get in a fix, a situation, and we forget how we have been trained. That's why it's important that we train up the children in the way that they should go. If not, when they get to that Red Sea moment, they won't have anything to recall. And so likewise, God had already trained Moses, use the rod. And so now in every situation, every plague was going to be performed by Moses using the rod, his hand, or Aaron to use his rod, or he would speak it. God has had him in training. Now it's time to do the work. Blessings abound. When God first appeared to Moses and called Moses forth the burning bush experience, God told Moses to use what he had in his hand. Moses, what do you have in your hand? A rod. All right, throw that rod down. It became a serpent. God then tells Moses to pick up the serpent by the tail. God tells Moses to pick up the serpent by the tail. Quite unusual, because then the head could come back and bite you. However, look at this stretch of faith. You just do what God told you to do. And what would normally turn back and bite and damage and poison someone, it won't do that with you. Follow the instructions of God and you will not be hurt. Why not? Because God has a work for you to do. And God needs you to know you will be able to handle every serpent spirit that is about to come your way, that you will meet up with. No problem. You've got the rod in your hand and you can handle it. Blessings abound. When Moses questions God about the people crying out and what is he going to do, God ultimately says, you know what? Moses, you think it's about you, but I'm going to get the glory. God will get the glory. God says that he will defeat Pharaoh, the chariots, and the horsemen in that order. Why Pharaoh, the chariots, and then the horsemen? Pharaoh is the leader. You get rid of the leader, order is gone. You get rid of the chariots, then the weapons that they were going to use to get to you will not work. The weapons have formed, but they will not prosper. That leaves the horsemen. They have no vehicle, no transportation. They have no leadership. Therefore, they will lose the battle. Your job is to trust God. And remember, you're not going to get the glory. God will get him honor and glory from the situation. Keep it about God. Hold up God. in the situation. Blessings abound.